Welcome everyone to our podcast series on reclaiming narratives as part of our Beyond Barriers podcast series. Today I'm joined by Callum Greaves. Welcome, Callum.
Yeah, so I'm Callum. I'm a disability consultant, trainer, researcher and speaker. I do a lot of work around disability inclusion at work, disability and climate justice, and just a kind of general sociology of disability and barriers and helping people understand it. I have muscular dystrophy. I use a electric wheelchair, as you can see, and it kind of affects my movements. I don't really have much movement beyond my hands. I use a lot of assistive technology to help me use computers and smartphones, and I have PAs to support me to get out and about and work and meet my kind of access and care needs.
No, that's great. Thank you for giving us such a great introduction. I wanted you to take us back slightly in terms of your experience at school.
Yeah, so I think thinking back to school is I can't really remember a stage where it's like I understood myself as a disabled person or different from my peers in some way. The memory of that's very kind of fuzzy, but it's kind of, I would say, I had the same self-awareness that an adult might have. So it was kind of like this kind of slow growing awareness of difference or even inferiority, perhaps, because I kind of had completely internalized negative narratives of disability. And I'm not sure how exactly. I think it's just you end up with a general sense from the reactions of others, from the media, from just a general environment. And I think when you're a kid, you're not able to challenge it. You kind of completely accept the narratives that are given to you by the adults, and it's kind of like this slow growing sort of self-blame almost. You kind of don't always stand up for yourself because you think this is kind of normal. It's kind of what it's like as a disabled person. So I wasn't really exposed to the idea that disability is not my condition. It's to do with my interaction with my environment, which is inaccessible, which might be discriminatory, or might not understand disability and how to support you the right way. And I think that kind of continued through primary school and high school, where teachers were often negative about my potential, especially when it came to my kind of career. And I was also not really given support to interact with other children in the same way. It's like I was the only disabled person in my high school, and I wasn't really given support to get out into the outside during break and lunchtime. They didn't really provide an assistant outside of the classroom, and I think that hindered my psychosocial development and kind of my career potential, because I didn't really see myself as part of society, really. I was kind of when the other kids were out socializing and learning about who they were and how they understood their place in the world, I didn't really get that same opportunity. And I think that did hold me back quite severely in terms of challenging these negative narratives, because there was no other information coming in. I was not really part of the disability community or even the able-bodied community, an undisabled community, if you can call it that. And so there was nobody there to kind of affirm to me that my life would be quite positive. I would one day, you know, go to university and move out of parents' home and have a supportive team of people behind me to help me do whatever I want to do. I didn't really have that kind of expectation or hope of something better. And I think it not only affects your social life and your confidence, but if you don't want to work on your career or passing your exams, you don't really have motivation, because you don't feel that your life is going to be full and meaningful. You kind of think, why study? Like, what's the point? Because it won't make any difference to the way my life plays out. And I think it took a long time to break these things down. It wasn't until like after school and university that I began to kind of deconstruct these narratives and these ideas that held me back.
You spoke of your time or when you went to university. So
Yeah.
when that change started, was that part of that experience that then fueled the change in terms of your approach towards life and how you felt about yourself?
Well, I think going into university, I was still kind of burdened with all this negativity about myself and about my life. And I think one major change was I now had support workers to kind of support me. So I did have more opportunity to do what I want and socialise. But there continued to be issues with support. I used care companies at the time. It was before I employed my own PAs to support me. And so I couldn't really go out in the evenings to socialise with the other students. So even though things improved, I had a bit more independence, a bit more positivity about what my life could look like. But I continued to have a sense of exclusion from other students and student life. Because, you know, it's not just about studying for your degree. There is a social and aspect to it as well. And I still felt excluded from that. I didn't employ my own PAs until a couple of years after graduation. And I think that was the point that my life really changed. And then once I got there, I think I was more exposed to authentic representation through social media. I was always like isolated from the disability community, but I kind of slowly became part of it as I connected with other members of the disability community on social media. And I could see that, you know, they were leading full, meaningful lives. And I think it was only then I understood that my life could be so much more than what it is. And yeah, I kind of started reading about the sociology of disability and understanding that the discrimination I face is not my fault. It's actually from the surrounding environment that I'm in. So that did help my confidence and stuff.
And I guess when you look back, did you feel that, or what kind of support did you have, and were there gaps that stood out for you during that period that heightened your experience, either negative or positive?
I think in high school there was some support in the classroom to help me with like taking notes or getting from one class to the next and go to the toilet and stuff like that. But that was it. There was I think the school completely failed me, if I'm honest. They needed to provide support to get me out in the playground and around other kids. I wouldn't need active support, but I would need someone like on the periphery to provide support when I need it. And they didn't do that at all. I was kind of put in the additional educational needs classroom, and there were a few kids there, not my age, who didn't really have a disability similar to mine, and they were just studying there, and that was it really. So they kind of completely deprived me of teenage social life altogether, and I think I can't really overstate the damage that has done. I didn't really have friends that were disabled or not disabled until I was after uni, to be honest. So yeah, that's the biggest gap that stands out for me.
When you think of it, is there one singular or thing that could have been done to completely change that experience?
I don't know if this was something that was available in the late 2000s when I was at high school. I think an outside support worker, not employed by the school, to enable me to get out and about and socialise. And that's it, it's not really particularly complex. I don't know if that was support that was available in those days, I don't know. But yeah, that one change would have made quite a big difference. I would have understood myself as kind of part of society, and then I might be more motivated to also study, because we don't feel part of it. You know, what's the motivation?
In those moments, what would you say helped you to be able to see, despite the challenges that were in front of you, to be able to not just survive, but take positive steps in those moments?
At the time, there wasn't really much, really. I did feel like I kind of drifted through school. I kind of barely passed my exams, and that kind of meant that I studied a degree that wasn't right for me, but I knew so little about myself and what I could achieve that it didn't seem to matter. So I kind of drifted through the whole thing, and later on I feel like everything that I've achieved has been done by myself, really, in terms of like understanding disability in a more positive way. There's no educationalness in the system, and I don't feel like I remember many moments where adults were telling me I could achieve this and that, I can have these things. So it was through self-education really that I learned about the social model of disability and understood who I was, really.
Oh, that's great, thank you. Was there a turning point that then led you towards becoming a consultant and a trainer as well?
Right, so I started a campaign when I was struggling to find social housing. I'd been on the waiting list for years, and I realised that I think the first step to turning my life around was living independently and having 24-hour support from people that I employed myself. So I just remember there was a moment, I think it was New Year's Day. I got up early and kind of made a list of the things in my life that I need to change. And it kind of started there. I started to, I felt like a lot of time had passed. So I did feel quite, that it was urgent that I fix these things. And I think the real turning point was moving away from care companies to employing my own PAs, people that I trust, that I choose myself. that are available at evenings, mornings, all times of day, so that I can do whatever I want. And I think without that, I wouldn't be able to live independently in my own home. So that was the focus of that. And I think some of the barriers that I faced definitely give me a passion about breaking them down and making sure that disabled people in the future don't have to experience the same things. And I think that's gave me more empathy as well with other people's situations, not just to do with disability, but any marginalised groups that face discrimination or barriers or and so on. Yeah, I think, and when I started my campaign, I realised that a lot of people were behind me. I raised £55,000 for like a quarter share for accessible flat, which is where I now live. And I think they're not really even understanding that there are people behind me, but that I do have power to change my situation. And you can't discover that alone. You need to be able to do it in community with others. And I think that was the big moment. I built a huge network out of that. Thousands of people following me, supporting me now. That kind of spun out into consultancy work, and I kind of just went along with it. It was an accident in a way.
No, I think you've answered my next question, and which was around, did you feel welcomed, coming into this new professional space of disability activism? Well, but you've answered that. I don't know if you wanted to add any more to that.
It depends which space it was. In some spaces I felt very welcomed, very supported, and the response has been very positive from the talks I've given. And that's definitely changed my life quite a major way in terms of my confidence and willingness to do things that make me nervous or that I'm scared to do. I don't really have so many fears about that. I do think in some spaces when I've worked as a freelance researcher, I do sometimes, that was even less of a positive experience. I felt like I was there for tokenistic reasons, to make their research proposal look better on paper, to say that they consulted with members of the disability community. There was research around workplace accommodations and other welfare-related support that would help disabled people into work and be supported in work. I didn't feel really what I said was taken on board or included. It was just kind of tokenistic impressional inclusion. They weren't really willing to embrace disability as a part of it. So it's mixed.
It's that balance. I would definitely ask as well, because that might have been quite a difficult situation to navigate emotionally as well. And how did you stay positive, knowing or working against such a system?
I just kind of do my best. I did kind of. It was a project that lasted 4 months, I think. And I just kind of went through it to the other side. In terms of like what lessons I got, I think maybe I need to be more, sometimes I can be too passive, I think. And as a member of a marginalised group, you can't be passive because you won't achieve the things you want. You won't get listened to. And I think it's more about like giving more resilience. I think it's definitely done that. And I think in the future I'll be more open about how I felt about that. But when it comes to academia, I think there's a lot of institutional issues, and they're quite difficult to overcome, to be honest.
No, absolutely. And I would ask, what would you say to a disabled person or a young person who is listening at the moment and they're just feeling really unsure about their next step or the pathway to take?
Well, I would say, first of all, is make sure you're connected with the disability community in real life or online. Maybe read like autobiographies of prominent disabled people, and just learn about barriers on the social level. And I think that's the starting point. You have to know that the negative experiences from your disability are not connected to you or your impairment. It's your interaction with your social environment. It's just trying to separate that from yourself. It's not part of you. I think that's kind of the first step if you're not feeling positive about the future or having that hope about your career and other goals in your life. And I think don't be scared to like ask for help from other people. For a long time I saw myself as a kind of burden on others. So unless someone's job was to help me, I wouldn't really ask for help. And I think that limited my ability to enter social situations. Because if I want to make friends, I do have to rely on others to an extent. But my experience is most people want to be helpful. And I think I realized that I wasn't being perceived as a burden. That was entirely in my head or exaggerated. I know some people do have negative attitudes, but in my experience, they're in the minority. And I think that's the biggest thing. Just kind of be yourself and don't try to hide it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And is there one specific thing or a couple of things you wish someone had told you when you were struggling the most?
I think especially in my teenage years, it was maybe just the affirmation that I could have a job, live my own, and have a social life and a partner, stuff like that. Just say that because I wasn't exposed to that in the media or through the disability community because I wasn't really part of it in those years. It's just kind of, especially from adults, that need to just tell you that you can have a full life. And I think it's simple as that. I think not talking about it is probably the worst thing.
Yeah, let's talk about benefits and policies. There have been lots of talk around changes to PIP and other benefits at the moment. What is your take on where things are headed?
I think the matter with PIP is there's a lot of rhetoric around benefits that are not true. Obviously, the government first keeps perpetuating the narrative that disabled people are scoundrels or faking their disabilities or work shy. And that's something that really has affected some of the prejudices that are present in society. When the government perpetuates these ideas, the general public do absorb them and perpetuate them. And I think that is one of the forces that is driving these cuts to PIP. A lot of people don't understand that, PIP is a out of work benefit. So you get it regardless of whether you're working or not. And PIP actually supports disabled people to work. You might use PIP to contribute to portability payments for an accessible vehicle that can get them to work. They might use it to pay for care that also enables them to work. And I think that's one thing they don't understand. And I feel like disabled people are being blamed for the other systemic failures of the government. And yeah, it's shaping attitudes in a negative way. I'm not feeling very positive about the trajectory of the current government. They don't seem interested in actually looking at the experiences of disabled people and take a kind of holistic approach in how to genuinely support disabled people to work. Taking financial support away from disabled people does not increase employment. It's not based on evidence. Yeah.
And I guess if you have been through the PIP system, is there any specific information you could give to someone who is starting the process?
Get advice. When I moved from DLA to PIP, I remember the application form was extremely long. It had questions that are not straightforward, and they often kind of trick you into answering incorrectly. So what I did is, I think my local council did have a benefits advisor, and I'm sure that is available in lots of councils around the UK. And you really have to get advice, and they'll step you through what to do. Don't do it alone. There's nothing wrong with asking for help with it. It's long, it's confusing, and it doesn't really, some of the questions don't make sense, to be honest. So yeah, don't do it alone.
Well, that's great, thank you. And what gives you hope right now in the fight for disability justice?
I would say that technology has, first of all, allowed more disabled people to work, but it's also allowed more solidarity with the disability community. It's much easier to connect and organise than it was in the past. And I think, unlike other marginalised groups, disabled people might find it harder to protest in person because of issues like fatigue and access and stuff like that. So I think there's more ways for disabled people to push for change. I think, and I do think attitudes are slowly changing. For example, like the word ableism, the concept of discriminating against people that don't meet societal norms of looks and productivity, and I never heard that word until the last few years. It wasn't even said in the media, and I think that's changing. It's becoming more mainstream. People don't recognize that term like they do sexism or racism, for instance. And I think that's obviously positive. But I think we're at a moment where a lot of support for people receive is at risk. And I think there's going to have to be a backlash against governments and proposed changes to benefits and other disability support. I feel like a lot of the progress of the last 20 years could be lost. So I'm trying to be positive, but it also feels urgent in a way.
Callum, what is next for you? And is there any specific things you're working on at the moment?
I'm working on a kind of disability training course. I'm trying to move away from the kind of typical disability equality training to kind of what I call anti-ableism and disability justice training. It kind of goes much further than the past kind of training programs around this. I'd like to truly embrace disability and the benefits of it. Including disabled workers does increase productivity and profitability for companies, but I also want to completely change people's understanding of disability in a more direct way, and that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And just all in that, just do more speaking work, expand what I'm already doing, and yeah, that's kind of just keep going, keep expanding.
No, brilliant. And lastly, can you leave our audience with a key message?
I think a lot of people outside the disability community are unfamiliar with disability and often anxious about interacting with people who are different from themselves. It sounds very simple, but I think for non-disabled people, it's simply interact with disabled people, get to know them and understand, and don't be nervous about saying the wrong thing, because I will correct you if you use language that is old-fashioned or outdated or possibly offensive. I'm easy to talk to, and many disabled people are. I think it's that we just need to don't fear difference and just kind of see it as an opportunity for curiosity and learning about others. And I think that is one of the biggest things that can change attitudes, is simply just interacting with the people of that group that aren't yours.
Oh, brilliant. And if our audience would like to find you on social media, where can we find you?
Right, so I'm Callum Greaves with one L on LinkedIn, and Callum Greaves on Instagram, but I don't really use that. LinkedIn's my main space for sharing, and I'm quite open on there. You can message me, you can look at my posts, yes, that's where you find me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Callum, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. We will also add your social media handles on the note descriptions as well. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep changing society. Thank you.
Mhm.